Where did Annie go? All right, great. It's 10:02, so I think we're going to call this meeting to order. Are we ready to go? Are we live? Yep, we are. Okay, great. Wonderful. So welcome, everyone, to the October 19th, 2023 Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee. I want to welcome all of our guests here in the gallery today, as well as say hello to anyone who's watching online, and to remind anyone who has a cell phone to put their cell phone on silent, please. I'm going to start with calling the meeting to order and a land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. With that, I'm just going to note that we have a quorum here, and Councillor Outhit, who is normally with CPED, is either hasn't arrived or yet, or is not here at the moment. Start with approval of the minutes from September 14th, 2023. Would anyone like to move the minutes from our last meeting? All right, moved by Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Blackburn. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone contrary? Nope, those pass. Move on to approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Unfortunately, the presenter for item 10.3.3, short-term rental ban impacts on the Eastern Shore, is no longer able to join today's meeting, so I'd ask that a member of the committee request that this item be deferred to a future meeting. All right, moved by Deputy Mayor Austin, seconded by Councillor Blackburn. All those in favor? Aye. And that passes. Are there any further changes to the order of business? Seeing none, I will call for a motion to approve the order of business as amended. Moved by Councillor Blackburn, seconded by Councillor Austin. Thank you very much. That passes. We have business arising out of the minutes. I don't see any here. Does anyone have any business arising out of the minutes? Nope. Very good. And I'll call for a declaration of conflicts of interest. If a committee member has a conflict today, then I ask you to declare it. I don't see any. Motions of reconsideration, none. Motions of rescission, none. Consideration of deferred business, none. Notices of tabled matters, none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. I'll ask the clerk if any correspondence is being received.
Thank you, Chair. No correspondence was received for today's meeting.
Thank you. And are there any petitions to be presented? I see no petitions. All right, no petitions to be presented. Then we will move on to the main focus of our meeting today, which are presentations. We have two presentations on the agenda, first from Discover Halifax and next from the Halifax International Airport Authority. I will invite Ross Jefferson from Discover Halifax to provide their presentation on the Discover Halifax Summer 2023 events. With that, The airport authority asked in advance to have a extra few minutes for their presentation today, and I thought I'd extend that to Ross as well, since these are the only items on our agenda today. Pardon? Well, airport authorities are, yeah, I didn't negotiate that one ahead of time. You'd have to, right now, I can negotiate something with Ross right now if there's something in the Discover Halifax. I don't know. I can't make that happen. But I'm wondering if someone would like to move, here, would you like to read it? Oh, sure. Thanks.
I move that Community Plan and Economic Development Standing Committee waive Section 451D, Administrative Order 1, to extend the length of external presentations by 15 minutes for October 19, 2023 meeting.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Blackburn. All those in favor? All right, that is approved. And so, Ross, you can now breathe between your slides. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Just make sure that this is on. Okay, there, I think we're live now. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Chair, Councillor Cuttle. Recognize you also as a Director of Discover Halifax, and Councillor Blackburn as a former Director of Discover Halifax. Thank you to the committee members. We work extensively with a number of community partners, including councillors, and I just appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Yes, I was invited today to speak about the past season for events, which I'll be touching on today, but I have extended a little bit of additional information on the new service delivery changes that we have in our contract with HRM, so I'll be covering that today. Just by way of background, we do have a service agreement with HRM for the services provided by Discover Halifax. That service agreement is negotiated through Maggie McDonald's office, Parks and Rec, and that is up for renewal, and this presentation is based on that new service agreement. Back 7 years ago, this committee received a presentation from the Hotel Association of Nova Scotia about entering into a new agreement to increase the hotel levy. That has since been passed by Council as well as the province, and has resulted in new agreements being prepared, and that's what we're covering here today. I won't spend a lot of time on this, except to say that obviously tourism is an incredibly important part of the economy here in HRM. We have 5.3 million visitors who visit HRM every year, and they spend about $1.3 billion each year. We have about half of the total visitation here in the province of Nova Scotia, and 1 in 27 people actually here in Halifax at any given point in time on average is an overnight visitor. We have a bold vision to be recognized globally as people's favorite city, Canadian city. That includes not only people that are coming to visit here, but people that choose to come and live here, to invest here, to go to school here. And it's also for the residents here for this to be recognized as their favorite city as well. We've done extensive work over the past 12 months entering into this new service agreement on looking at our mission, and we've updated it to the following. We seek to maximize the economic and social benefits derived from the tourism industry for the benefit of the people who live here, visit here, and invest in the region. We do this by showcasing the best of our region to the world, and through collective impact, we seek to shape the sustainable future through good planning, investment, and design. And you'll see this as I speak to the new services that we have, the addition focused on these areas. In 2016, this committee received a presentation again from the Hotel Association of Nova Scotia in the preliminary discussions around increasing the hotel levy that's collected on room sales. At that time, we were doing benchmarking against our peers across the country, and it was quite evident at that time that we were not investing relative to what our peers were doing across the country. Notwithstanding, we also had the largest geographic territory of any jurisdiction to cover as well. I won't go into these details, but I do want to just provide the highlights. At that time, during the benchmarking, we were in the bottom quartile for marketing. We were marketing up until just recently only to what we call our rubber tire traffic. Our visitor experience program, we had no maps. We didn't have deep relationships with the regions in HRM. We were doing a relative good job on our meetings and convention sales. And there were no resources whatsoever for the attraction, bidding on events, or in the area of destination development. Today, as a result of the increase in the hotel levy and the new agreement negotiated, our marketing program has now been expanded to the national markets. And we are partnering on select international markets, and wonderful to have the Halifax International Airport Authority with us. We are partnering with them extensively on marketing campaigns in this end. We are also always on, moving from just being marketing 2 months a year to now marketing 12 months a year. In our visitor experience program, we have built an extensive partnership and relationships into all of the regions of HRM. We've improved a number of the maps and publications that we have in this area. We are really benefiting from the increased intelligence of having these relationships all throughout HRM. We have added financial incentives to our meetings and conventions offering. We were the only destination that were not offering that, so that has been new, and we have just recently announced the opening of a new events department and a destination development department, hired the new leadership for those two departments, and we're starting to staff up. We'll be focusing on events, the actions. There are 49 recommendations in the Canadian Sport Tourism Association Stat Pro report, which was commissioned 3 years ago. And in the area of destination development, we're focusing on the areas of sustainability, policy and planning, and heavy emphasis on rural projects as well. We work very closely with HRM departments as well as other departments on the areas of destination development, and we work with extensively with partners such as Events East and others in the events category. I'm going to show you just 3 new television spots that have been developed. These are being shown across the country in theaters. They're being showed on TV. They're being showed in a number of digital formats. And during the month of September, along with our partner, the Airport Authority and Air Canada, we had an exclusive takeover of all Air Canada flights, domestic and international. And this is not an optional. When you get on, you will see this ad. You're captured in your seat. It's played across the PA system and on every screen across all flights during that time period. So I'll just let you see the 3 ads, the 3 videos we have running now.
There's a healing element in salt, in sweat, in tears, in the ocean. In Halifax, being surrounded by salty water and fog is just enough grit to help polish away the pressure of to-do lists. To just make time for things that feel good. To let the salt cure whatever ails you. Halifax could be the break that finally leaves you feeling like you took one. As long as you're willing to rub salt in your wounds. Life by the ocean means embracing the fog as it rolls in, when the whole city goes fuzzy, and nothing is sharp or precisely defined. While you're here, you too might fall in love with misty Halifax mornings. Fog can muffle the noise of your expectations, help you focus on the moment right in front of you. It can give you a whole new perspective, if you're willing to let it cloud your judgment. Life by the ocean means embracing the fog.
Oh, sorry, and this is the last one.
To smooth a coast of jagged boulders, all you need is centuries of salty waves and howling winds. See, the elements in Halifax can soften you, make you a little less rough around the edges. It's probably why people here seem more easygoing, relaxed from being shaped by the meeting of land and sea. You can come let it erode you to your softer self too, and remember why sometimes it's good to feel a bit worn down.
So you can see the style. We're obviously speaking to the authenticity of the place, not just a place as a place to visit, but a place to live, a place for you to raise a family, a place you come to school. We have this in video format. We have a number of out-of-home, which are some of the examples here. We're in Dundas and Yonge Street in Toronto, popular places around Toronto. We were out in front of the TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, and also throughout major cities here in Canada. With the support of the Airport Authority and Destination Canada, we are also availed the opportunity to have this video on Times Square. It is 365 days, an entire year that we have this space. It was negotiated at an incredible price of free. We paid for the development fees for the format here, but through those partnerships, we were able to get that, and it's an incredible opportunity in that particular market. We've since added to that. While we're not normally in New York, we added to this the ability to geofence anyone that is in Times Square with their telephone gets pinged. We're serving ads to those people as well. So it's really an international visitor that's traveling through that destination. And then this is just the photos of these videos they're showing in the back of the screens in September through Air Canada. Really proud to say that just recently these campaigns have won some significant national awards. Just last week, the ICE Awards, and we've received an award for the Applied Arts Advertising Awards as well. And we're also very pleased that this campaign is getting large attraction also in other non-paid channels. It's being shared by Destination Canada, amongst other partners that we work with, and of course quite extensively through social media as well. Again, I'll just add that we are now always on in campaigns. So we have two different campaigns that are running. Our rubber tire market sees more of a urban type advertisement. Those people are coming for an urban experience, and the rest of Canada is seeing the ads that you've just seen here. How's it working? Well, we are, I won't go through this in great detail. The bold yellow line is hotel room stays for the year. You can see the white line and the other yellow line, what happened during the pandemic. So we are fully recovered from the pandemic. In fact, we were one of the earliest cities to recover from the pandemic. And I have some stats just to share here. This is 2019 hotel stays compared to our comp set, and you can see that Halifax is in the lead in that recovery, and we have been doing so ever since 2002. On the membership side, we're really proud, again, of now having the resources and the capabilities of supporting all of HRM. We've seen our membership grow from 750 from 174, and most of that growth is happening in the regions outside of the downtown core. We're very proud, too, to be able to spend more time and quality on the messaging that we're talking about as we speak about HRM, and we take the responsibility very deeply to tell the entire story of HRM. We've been working with the Nova Scotia Indigenous Tourism Network in developing great content. We, during NAG, captured a whole bunch of wonderful video and photography, and we've been doing a lot of work in partnership with these communities to make sure we are representing this story. Just ending quickly here on, just checking my time, ending quickly here on the sales production for our events and meetings conventions. In a typical year, we will bid on about 200 events in partnership with many of our hotel partners and Events East. We typically win about half of those. We are on track to do this year. We expect to reach our goal of economic impact of $45 million and 111 conferences and meetings being won for future years. Likewise, in the events production, we are opening up the new office, so this is still based on a staff of one person, but we have a goal to bid on 35. Today we've bid on 24 events. We've won 8, and the total economic impact from those total this year is $22 million. Some of the notable wins include the Junos, Skate Canada International, and we have an announcement coming up fairly soon for a pretty significant event. I can't announce that here today, but suffice to say Halifax is doing very well. The partnership that works on this is bigger than Discover Halifax, but the destination is doing exceptionally well in this area. We just take a moment to also recognize that many of our leads, both for meetings and conventions and for sporting and other events, come from our own community, and we have a campaign aimed at recognizing those individuals and trying to inspire others to step forward to use their relationships or their contacts. And this campaign is now in market. You may see this in various formats throughout the city. We're promoting directly to Haligonians and people in Halifax to encourage them to use their connections, to contact us, and we can help put bids together. We did have a fantastic year in 2023 with some major events that you see, some of the logos that you see here. We're going to continue to grow this portfolio in the years to come. We're looking at developing the first strategy now for events, along with all of our partners in one collective strategy. And we're very excited for the opening of this new office. Finally, in the area of destination management, it is a new department that we're opening up. Until this point in time, our objective has only been to increase demand. And at this point, we are now entering into looking at the complexities of the supply chain and the things that we need to do as a destination to make sure that we're benefiting both the residents that live here as well as those that visit the community. So we're very excited about this. We'll be focusing significantly on environmental sustainability. We'll be doing this, a major update to the Integrated Tourism Master Plan in 2024, and we'll be focusing on regional subplans within that plan. That takes me to the end of my presentation. I want to thank everyone. I'll just end on one note. We take great pride in the partnerships that we work with, including the Airport Authority, the Halifax Partnership, Events East, many of the departments within HRM, and really too many to mention. But I will say, in my experience as DMOs working across the country, we have the best relationships in this region. I mean that sincerely. I just want to point out the relationship that HRM has with the Hotel Association. If you look across the country, those relationships are often incredibly difficult and usually at odds. In fact, in many cases, you have hotel associations that run their DMOs independent of the municipality. I think we've always been a first to the creation of the DMO here many years ago, and I just want to applaud the council as well as the Hotel Association on coming to the memorandum of understanding in increasing the hotel tax recently. Thank you very much for your time, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ross. I think it's incredibly impressive, but I'm going to open up the floor to the committee to see if there's any questions or comments. There we go. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Thank you, Ross, for the presentation. I don't have a question for you today. I just wanted to say the third ad about erosion, that's really well done, right? I really like that third one that you showed. And congratulations on the big sign in New York. That's some really impressive and good work. So thank you so much to everyone who works to bring the world to Halifax. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. I have been on the record several times as saying that my time on Discover Halifax board, that was the best board that I served on. I just loved my time with you guys. A couple of things came to mind. Just wondering, when I was on the board, there was a great shift to sort of an a la carte menu style membership. Just wondering if that still in play here? Sounds like numbers are up significantly from what they were in 2016. The other thing I noted too was, seems to be, has there been a little shift in focus? During my time on the board, it was, the focus was on the maritime market and not so much Ontario and certainly not so much New York. So just wondering how that progressed. And just wondering if you can sort of pinpoint, I was quite struck by what you said, the relationships between the municipalities and the hotel associations, and I'm just wondering what you see as the key to our success here with this relationship. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. We also very much appreciated your time and your continued support as well. On your first question, I think your first question was on the membership.
Yeah.
Yes, we used to approach membership as a means of revenue. And that was kind of restrictive and prohibitive. It really focused us on those that could really afford to be members of the downtown core. We realized that the strength of membership is actually about good governance of the organization. Our organization has the duty and responsibility to serve all of HRM, and we did some deep soul searching and came to the conclusion we were not doing that. A large portion of that was just around financial resources and capacity. But since switching, we really do look at membership now as our relationship with the regions of HRM. With a staff of one person that's responsible for membership, it's impossible to know everything that's going on in such a large territory. The membership and the relationships that we formed with our new members is actually they are partners in sharing intelligence about their business, the experiences going on and things happening in the region. And with the new increase in the hotel tax, we'll be able to add resources to deepen those relationships right now. We are monetizing our relationship with members in different ways, and they can buy advertising and other opportunities. In fact, our revenue has grown as a result of that. So while we've moved to a free membership, we're monetizing that in different ways. On the marketing, yes, largely because of our budget, we were not able to do marketing in the rest of Canada. It just simply would be so watered down it wouldn't mean anything. That's one of the primary reasons we focused on our maritime market. Today, with the increase in the hotel levy, we've increased our marketing budget by $1 million. That allows us to now market across Canada. We are still keeping our marketing in the rubber tire market here at home as well. So we two separate positioning campaigns for those markets.
Yeah.
And on your third question,
Both the hotel associations and the relationships, yeah. What's the key? Why are we so successful where others have fallen?
I think it is part of the nature of how we work here. I'd extend that to also the relationship between Events East and our organization. If you look across the country, those are often challenging competitive relationships. I think that the leadership here across to all of our agencies, including the airport, Events East, I could go on and name the partners, Halifax Partnership in particular. But the Hotel Association and HRM in particular is one that is very uncommon. The DMO was started here 25 years ago, and it was one of the early ones that was started as a separate destination marketing organization. And I think since then that relationship has stayed strong, and you know, to have industry voluntarily want to tax themselves and enter into an agreement on doing so, and to also, to extend the idea of growing the membership, and in some cases it could be looked at as diluting their voting capacity. I think they've bought into that. We're all better together, rowing in one direction.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Next on the board, I have Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ross, for being here. I have to echo Deputy Mayor's comments on that last ad. That last ad is really good. Who did you use to develop those ads?
We are, our agency of record here is Trampoline. A lot of the idea generation, though, and the strategy we've insourced. So we are insourcing a lot more of our own services. We're buying a lot of our own media in-house. We're doing a lot of our design in-house. And a large part of that creative concept was developed in-house by our Vice President, Claire Tidby. And she works in partnership with the agency that we have.
Excellent. So, looking at the hotel stays and how that has increased, which is great news, and you can just tell by looking at how the downtown is feeling that there's definitely an increase there. Would you say that a lot of that is attributed to the many events and the conferences and the, I guess, the many events and conferences? I'm also wondering, is there a way to somehow, and I know it's difficult because people are coming from all different ways, to capture like who's coming here just for visits? Because it'd be interesting to see who's here not on business, because I know that is a thing. People love to come here just because, like your ads say, people just like to enjoy the environment here. And another thought is there a way that with the Hotel Association to somehow capture metrics? Like, is there a way that maybe we need to incentivize hotel to capture that metric? Like when somebody checks in, how'd you hear about Halifax? Because I'd really be interested to see and hear of like who just comes here because they heard of this cool place. They were in Times Square and they saw this ad and they booked a flight. I know that could be difficult, but has that been thought about of trying to capture those metrics?
Thank you, Councillor, through the chair to you. Yes, this is the elusive question about whether your marketing dollars work, and the old saying is, you know that 50% of it does, and you just don't know which 50%.
Right.
But in more seriousness, we do extensive tracking on our campaigns. One of our key metrics is our website traffic, and the correlation of our campaigns to our website traffic is tracked extensively. So we track everything from time on site to the things that they're looking at. We also have the ability through surveys to do surveys. It is not as frequent that we do that, but we generally know why people come to Halifax. Predominantly first for visiting friends and relatives, second followed by leisure, third followed by shopping and business, almost tied, and fourth for conferences and conventions. We are now entering a new era where we will be purchasing cell phone data, so we can now track at the district or the regional level why people are coming. We can soon specifically track people that are coming, not individuals, but information about geographical regions. Let's say we want to take Dartmouth Crossing. We could take a look at Dartmouth Crossing for a month and figure out geographically where all those people are coming from based on anonymized cell phone data. So this is a brand new area that we're going to be focusing a lot more on. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten your second question now as well.
No, that it all tied in. My second question was really just on how do you track, which I know is difficult in mentioning it, like could the hotels, but I know that adds a lot of logistics for them because they're already doing a lot anyway. So really, you answered it, and I'm happy to hear that you're thinking of different ways to try to capture that data. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councillor Smith. I don't see any more speakers on the board, so I'll just take a couple minutes here because I could probably spend all morning singing Discover Halifax's praises. You know, it's fantastic to see the success with our campaign. For those of you who didn't recognize the voice, that was Alec Baldwin, which Claire likes to point out. The authenticity of those ads is, it's just right on point, and I think it's absolutely amazing. expanding the services, creating those maps, taking a regional approach, starting to include more of our rural communities in our destination marketing, I think is fantastic for a few reasons. One is really taking advantage of our unique position as a regional municipality with an urban and a rural municipality. So, I think it's good to see the engagement of our rural communities. And also, the new piece that you're working on with destination management is how can we help those communities further develop their tourism product? Because at the end of the day, it's the success of our communities which reflects the success of our municipality as a whole. And the economic impact of tourism, it's no small potatoes. It's really significant. It supports our small businesses, supports our community museums, supports our hotels. And so, this is really, really important work. I just want to mention there's a new chair of the board of directors, Tala Khan, who is the general manager of Delta Hotels. So further, reflecting the relationship between Discover Halifax and our hotel industry. And, and it's a great board and a great organization. So thank you very much for being here today to kind of share some of the things that have happened over the past year. And we'll look forward to hearing from you again, hopefully next year. Okay. Next on our agenda, we have item 10.3.2, the Halifax International Airport Authority. I will invite Joyce Carter, President and CEO of Halifax International Airport Authority, and Paul Brigley, Vice President of Finance and CFO of Halifax International Airport Authority, to provide their presentation on the I think we've got a typo here, because apparently you're down here for presenting Discover Halifax Summer 2023 events as well. But I think you're here to present something different. So surprise us. Please come have a seat. You'll have 15 minutes for your presentation. The clerk will hold up signs to let you know when your presentation time is coming to an end and when your presentation is over. And then we'll have some questions from the committee. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Joyce Carter. I'm President and CEO of Halifax International Airport Authority. And as well as the chair mentioned, I have with me Paul Brigley, who's our Vice President, Finance and Chief Financial Officer. But I also have a few members of my team here from HIAA that are sitting directly behind me. So welcome to them as well. I want to thank the committee chair, Councillor Cuddle, for agreeing to have us present today, and to the members of the committee as well. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I will start by saying prior to the pandemic, we used to come before council on a regular basis. I do believe that this may be the first time that we are presenting in quite some time, probably because of the pandemic, but as well, probably the first time that we're presenting to some of the council members. So we very much appreciate your time. I'll start, before I talk a little bit about the airport, I thought it was really important to talk a little bit about Halifax International Airport Authority, which I will refer to as HIAA. We are responsible at HIAA for maintaining a safe and efficient airport operations, and for as well providing vital administrative services at the airport. We're a non-share capital corporation, and this means that we don't have any shareholders. So we're not a crown. I often get asked, are you a crown corporation? We're not, nor are we funded by government. In fact, we operate a lot like a not-for-profit. We generate revenue from airport activity, we pay all of our operating expenses, and any surpluses that we have at the end of the year must be invested. That's a requirement through our agreement with the feds, must be invested back into the development and the improvement of the airport. Similarly, any deficits, the only way we can fund deficits is by debt. And as well, I'll mention that any capital improvements we do at the airport for the betterment of our community are funded by our airport improvement fee and by debt as well. Over the 23 years that we have managed the airport, we have been focused on making strategic investments that best support the needs of our community. We're locally controlled, which means that our airport has decisions made here in Halifax. Sometimes I'm asked, is your airport, run by Transport Canada? And the answer to that is simply no, it's not. They are our landlord, and they're also our regulator. But when we took over management of the airport in 2000 from the federal government, we became the organization that runs the airport. So we've worked really hard since 2000 to make Halifax Stanfield a significant community and economic asset, and the asset and community contributor that it is today. Next slide. Locally run and we're community focused, our organization and our team exist to serve our region and connect our people and partners and goods to the world. You can see on this slide that that's the sentiment that's reflected in our mission and in our vision. The next slide shows our organizational values, and they're expressed by way of value statements. These values are really our guiding principles that are embedded in everything that we do. We care deeply about putting people first, ensuring the safety and security, and always doing the right thing. Recently, we were pleased to relaunch our community outreach and sponsorship program. It's called Uplift It, and it's a program that provides support to community organizations through financial donations, sponsorships, in-kind support, and volunteers. This program is entirely funded by HIAA's operational revenue, and therefore the program was suspended through the pandemic. We're thrilled to accept funding applications once again, as it embodies our strong commitment to the community. As the mayor often says, our airport does shoot way above its weight. Our drive is to go above and beyond, and that's a core of our organization and is the reason that our airport is often being globally recognized by industry associations for our superior customer service. Finally, we value acting today for tomorrow and collaboration, or together is better. I will have more to say on that in a few minutes shortly, but before I do that, I'm going to turn things over to Paul.
Thank you, Joyce, and good morning, everyone. Our next couple of slides are going to highlight some basic key points about our airport. Number one, Halifax is the largest airport in Atlantic Canada, and it's actually the 8th busiest airport in the country. We are the smallest of what are viewed as the large airports in Canada, and Ottawa and Winnipeg would be the closest airports in this group to our size. It's also notable that Halifax Stanfield is the only airport east of Montreal with a U.S. pre-clearance facility. And this facility allows Halifax travelers bound for the United States to clear customs before they board their flight. And that's a significant strategic advantage for our city. The airport also provides direct access to key markets across North America, Europe, the Caribbean, and Asia. Here's another slide that highlights some more interesting numbers. You can see on this slide, it's a snapshot of passenger and cargo activity in 2022. I'll say that this year, we expect passenger volumes to come back to 3.5 million and then move to 4 million in 2024. This is going to bring us much closer to our pre-pandemic passenger volume levels of 4.2 million. When we look at cargo, in 2022, we achieved a record for cargo processing at 37,000 metric tons, and we're on track for another year of growth here in 2023. I'll note that, cargo growth has been, or cargo activity has been steady throughout the period since the pandemic. But it's also important to realize that it's not typically a significant revenue generator for HIAA. The airport handles about 100 flights a day on average, and that includes arrivals and departures. And while there's been a significant increase over the last couple of years in passenger activity, coming back from the extremely low volumes that we saw at the height of the pandemic, we're still not returned to a sustainable financial position. From 2020 to 2022, the organization reported cumulative operating losses of approximately $90 million. And we had no choice over that period but to add an additional $150 million to our debt in order to keep the doors open and keep the airport operational. Although recovery is definitely progressing, passenger activity looks different today than it did pre-pandemic. We're receiving fewer flights. Airlines are operating larger, more fuel-efficient aircraft, and therefore we have more passengers per flight. And of course, as everybody's noticed, there are very few empty seats on planes today when you're traveling. And those flights are often arriving in a narrower time frame than they were during the day compared to pre-pandemic. So it's been challenging for the airport in terms of its operations to handle more people flowing through the airport during those peak times. We do expect to return to a more positive financial position in the near term. However, we do have to note that rapidly rising costs and increased debt servicing requirements are going to be an ongoing financial challenge for us for years to come. This slide is really all about the airport's economic impact. And in your meeting agenda package, you should see an info card that highlights some stats about the airport, including our 2022 economic impact. These figures were compiled for us by CanMac Economics Limited, and they demonstrate just how much Halifax Stanfield is an economic generator for the province of Nova Scotia. But in addition to the provincial statistics, I want to share with you some information about how much the airport contributes specifically to the economy of the Halifax Regional Municipality. The total impact of Halifax Stanfield on HRM in 2022 can be seen on this slide. So I think it's important to note that Halifax Stanfield and the operations of ourselves and all of our partners support over 12,000 full-time equivalent positions within HRM, which is a significant number. And I think that that's impressive, especially when you consider the significant disruptive impacts of COVID-19 and what that did to the aviation sector. Also, I should note on this slide, the total GDP quote there, it should be 1.2 billion, not million. I think probably the Tim Hortons at the airport does GDP of 1.2 million over the course of a year. But the airport has helped our city and our region thrive by providing sustainable and competitive air travel and cargo services to residents and businesses in HRM. The airport also enables visitation from tourists, as Ross said, from around the world who arrive by air. Air visitors do generate more tourism revenue than road visitors. They stay longer and they spend more. All of this tourism activity contributes to the growth of Halifax's economy. And while there's no denying that Halifax Stanfield has significant positive impact on HRM, we can't overstate how proud we are to support the city's economic development, tourism, immigration, and overall growth. Regions across the country recognize the economic value of enhanced air service at their airports. Municipalities and provinces are aggressively supporting their airport authorities and making investments to help attract new airlines and routes to their communities. I will say that the competition is fierce for new service, but the rewards, if successful, are significant. So I'll stop talking at this point, I think, and turn it back over to Joyce.
I want to revisit two corporate values that I mentioned earlier. The first is acting today for tomorrow. We have at the Airport Authority an unwavering commitment to sustainability and the environment. We know HRM is also firmly committed to reducing carbon emissions, building more resilient communities, and working towards a 2050 goal of a net zero economy through Halifax. We support the goals of the municipality to reduce our impact on the environment and assure that we are adapting to climate change. Our airport was recently recognized by Airport Council International, the North American division, with an Airport Carbon Accreditation Level 3 certificate. To reach this level, airports must demonstrate that they are managing and reducing CO2 emissions and engaging stakeholders to do the same as part of the global airport industry's response to climate change. Halifax Stanfield is one of only a small number of North American airports that have achieved this level of accreditation within this program. The accreditation reflects our team's dedication to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and minimizing our environmental footprint. Examples of sustainability initiatives being undertaken by the Airport Authority to reduce its carbon footprint include constructing a new taxiway on one of our runways to improve aircraft operational efficiency, therefore reducing aircraft idling time, installing electric vehicle and equipment charging infrastructure for airport operations and for those who park at the airport, and replacing lighting fixtures on our airfield and in our buildings with energy-efficient LED technology. We have a goal to reduce our emissions by 30% by 2026, and as of the end of 2022, we have achieved a 23% reduction. The next slide shows the other value that I will talk about, which is together is better. There are some excellent positive examples of how HIAA and HRM have recently worked together. The first one I'll mention is through land use bylaws. So we recently submitted some feedback regarding HRM's proposed updated land use bylaws around the airport. We have been in discussions with HRM Planning and have received very favorable responses to many of our suggestions. We appreciate that HRM knows the city best, but they also recognize the importance of considering our input when it comes to changes that impact airport operations. We can bring our expertise together and we can achieve positive outcomes, and that's one good example. I also want to mention that HRM has worked with our team at being very strategic in limiting residential development around the airport and along aircraft approaches so citizens are not disrupted by airport activity. This also ensures that we're able to operate 24/7, which is a key strategic advantage for our cargo operations. I'll quickly mention two other examples where we work together. One is on airport transit bus payments, so looking at how we can make that more efficient for our users. And the other is around illegal dumping. Councillor Gammon came to us and talked about how we may be able to help some dumping on the outside of the airport, and our team kicked into action, even though it was off property, to make that better. So know that we're here to help. We want to help the city achieve its objectives. And some of the things that Ross just spoke about, I'll quickly mention, are just so important that we work together on the community events, the Junos, the Security Forum, NATO's Diana. All of that is really important that we have the service to get people here for those events. So all to say, we very much value our positive relationship with HRM Council and staff. So in conclusion, I'll just recognize that we are locally controlled. Know that we are a critical gateway to the city. We're a vital economic contributor and a job creator. We know our core values well. We work together as a community. We want to act today for tomorrow, and we know that working together with HRM is better. So thank you so much, and my sign is up that my time is out, so I'll stop now and see if there's any questions or comments for us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very informative presentation. There are some speakers on the list here. We'll start with the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you folks for coming in today. Suspect some of the coming in is maybe tied to our budget discussions a little bit from last year, as I think it was a reminder for all of us around the room to not take these relationships for granted, right? I don't think we'd made any special efforts on council to touch base with you folks, and I think the same's true, so I think this is good. It's good to see you, and perhaps we can make this an annual sort of thing in the way that a lot of folks come in to talk to us. The question I had for you, just appreciate the COVID situation and what it did to the airport. I think in the midst of it, the park and fly lot had 2 cars in it or something, or there was just no traffic at all. I'm wondering, and because it's not my area of expertise, it's not something I've followed closely, has there been anything from the federal government in terms of, because our model here is not unique. As far as I understand, this kind of airport authority thing is pretty common across the country in terms of how airports are run and managed. Has the federal government had any sort of relief program for airports? Because I mean, they're community operated, they're economic drivers, and they were all in very much the same boat across the country. So I'm just curious if the feds have had any program that might help with that long-term debt hangover that's going to be with you for a while.
Very much, Councillor Austin, through the chair. So I'll maybe start and then turn it over to Mr. Brigley to talk about some of the direct support that the feds had through the pandemic. But my comment on the park and fly lot is, you're right, there were 2 cars. They were abandoned because the park and fly lot was closed. So, one of the decisions that we took is just to close the lot and pull everyone closer to the airport, because it was just unviable to keep that lot open for us. So yes, and for sure there were some programs, certainly nowhere equivalent to what you would have seen in other countries federally. So we were disappointed that we didn't get more support from the federal government, but we did get some, and I'll get Paul Brigley to talk about the specific programs. That's a good question.
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. Yeah, the federal government's support was fairly limited. In terms of direct operating support, airports were able to participate in the wage subsidy program, the same as a lot of other organizations, and over 2020 and 2021, I believe we benefited to the tune of just over $10 million from that program. There was also a direct program created called the Airport Relief Fund, which provided a one-time payment of about $5.6 or $7 million for support. And then on top of that, there was a waiver of our requirement to pay ground lease. It was a 100% waiver from the time that the pandemic began till the end of 2020. And then it returned over time till starting in 2022, we were paying full ground lease payments again. And then beyond that, there were some capital programs, capital funding programs that the federal government invested in that airports and other parties were able to apply for. We were able to be successful in getting some funding over a couple of those programs as well to support some of the projects that Joyce was talking about earlier.
Okay.
Ed, if I may, the losses that Paul Brigley referred to earlier were after that support, so you can only imagine how our losses would have been that much higher. And the infrastructure programs were on critical infrastructure, so stuff you had to do anyway, repairing the runways, that sort of thing. They had a program to help support those because they knew we had used all of our borrowing ability to stay open.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. It's kind of disappointing that there wasn't more available. Even just, government borrowing, I imagine that the feds probably had a better interest rate than anyone else, even if they could have lent some of that ability to it, right? Because now it'll probably take you folks decades to, fully, get past the debt hangover from this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next on the list, we have Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you so much. Great to see you back, and indeed, let's make this a regular date. I'm curious about a couple of things. First of all, the ability, you mentioned about the ability to provide 24-hour cargo service because of the lack of housing development, around the airport. Is this something that is unique in Canada? So that was question one. And I'm just wondering as well about, how difficult has it been post-COVID to sort of navigate the shifting sands of airline schedules? Because I'm assuming that airlines don't give you any notice whatsoever when they decide they're going to cancel the run between, Halifax and whatever city. And I wonder, what challenges does that present to you? Like I'm thinking, things like staffing, and all of a sudden you don't need staff at 6 a.m. because that run has been canceled. So just wondering how you navigate those shifting sands post-COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, through the chair. It's interesting, your first question about whether what we call the noise equivalent factor, I think it is, NEF contours around Halifax Airport, that has been recently approved, I guess back in 2012 or so, by the municipality, as to whether that is unique. It is, and so we have quite an advantage because of the location of our airport and the approvals that we received with respect to the noise contours, which prohibits residential developments within those contours to allow us to run our airport 24/7. And so the advantage that provides to us as a city and as a province is it means, because we are an hour's time difference from really the rest of the country, the other 8 airports that Paul spoke of, we can start our operations an hour early. So if you choose to get up for that horribly early Air Canada flight at 5:15 or 5 a.m., you can take that. That's a big advantage to get your day started in the rest of the country, and the airlines like that too. They overnight and then they can leave in the morning. But from a cargo and as well from a sun season, it means that we can have those operations work at night. So those cargo flights can come when it's more convenient for them, which is in the nighttime. And as well, our sun season, again, the very early hour of 3 and 3:30 to take your sun flights allows some flexibility to the airlines, and really is a strategic advantage for us when we're looking to gain those services.
Yeah.
There's many examples of airports in Canada and around the world where the encroachment of residential development has meant that their operating hours are limited. So they can't go past, say, 11 o'clock at night, and they can't start before 6 in the morning. So that is an advantage strategically that we should work very hard to preserve. And I thank the council for having the foresight to help us get there, and the staff. The question around post-COVID and airlines schedules, again, you're absolutely right. So Paul mentioned the shifting of the schedules today. So if you were to go to Halifax Stanfield prior to the pandemic, you could pretty well go any time of the day, and it was bustling. Today, when you go, I get a lot of folks say to me, well, I was there at 10 o'clock on Monday, and man, it was really, really busy. But if you are to come an hour later, you can almost sometimes shoot, a cannon through the terminal building. And that's because the restart and the recovery has gone back to the way it used to be when our passenger volumes were lower, set bank times. That's more efficient for the carriers as they start to reopen their operations. So it does require us to be incredibly nimble with our staff and with our resources. You don't want to look in and enter into development programs that meet peak demand because you may only need it 3 or 4 times a day. So we're looking to technology changes. We're looking to ensuring that we use all the resources we have around innovation to be able to be as efficient during those peak times as we are in the non-peak times. But Carriers make their decisions based on their own schedules, not so much based on demand. The lack of service in Halifax today as compared to 2019 isn't because of a lack of demand, it's because of lack of supply. And the lack of supply comes both to the aircraft that they have available and as well to the crews to operate those aircraft. So as they ramp back up, we will get there. It's just going to take a little bit of time. But it is a very different operating environment today than it was pre-pandemic and obviously through the pandemic. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next on the list, we have Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. As my colleagues mentioned, it's great to have you here, and I hope that we can continue this. So my comments, and you actually highlighted it before or after I wrote it down, so I know that it's on your mind. It's around the transit. So I don't know the last time I actually drove to the airport for myself, because for me, on the peninsula, taking transit's pretty easy. Coming from downtown, and I think it's the best trip in the city. Because I have a bus pass, I pay $1, sit on the bus, don't have to worry about my car parking or parking my car, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, folks like me who are coming from downtown, I think transit is one of the easiest ways to get to and from the airport, and also on your carbon footprint piece as well. I think that's very important. So one of the questions, and I looked up because I was curious, with the airport bus in 22-23, there was about 324 boardings for that year, which isn't a whole lot considering how many people are coming from the airport and getting on and off flights. So I wonder, and I know you're working on this and you highlight that, so I'm not going to put you on the spot now, but I do wonder what we could be doing to better make that accessible to folks who are coming in, and not to take away from the other services, taxi drivers and whatnot, because that's a huge part of their livelihood. But I know when you go to any other major airport, transit is a huge part of how people come to and from. So just wondering what some of the thoughts of in improving that, and I know it's on both of our ends to work together to make that happen. But I do think when I using it so much, because I know how to use it, it's easy. But if you're someone who's just coming in, it's a little difficult to kind of find your way down to the transit terminal and know when the bus is coming. So just wondering what more thoughts on that is happening. But you've highlighted that you're working on it, so you don't have to go too deep. But yeah, just wondering on that.
Thank you for your question, Councillor, through the chair. And so absolutely, transit is something that is really important to us. We're very grateful to have a regular transit service to the airport, and it's awesome to hear your experience on using it. You've hit the nail on the head that if you live in HRM, you kind of know how to use it. You know what you need to do with respect to ticketing and exact change and all of that. But if you're somebody arriving at Halifax Stanfield, it is really difficult to be able to have the right change and know exactly, how to use the transit system. We're working really closely. Dean Bouchard, who's here with me today, our colleague, and maybe I'll get him to just make a couple of comments in a minute about some of the work we're doing with Metro Transit, is we're working really hard to get that system really efficient. There's a few things that are changing that will make that the case, but I'll also highlight, something else around transit to and from the airport. These larger cities that we, sort of emulate to be, that have mass transit, are absolutely where we need to go at Halifax Stanfield. The Metro Transit is one option to get to the city, but we need to think big and we need to think far into the future. And I'll mention an initiative that we're involved in, as is Halifax Regional Municipality, which is the Joint Regional Transportation Authority, a new organization that has been established by the province of Nova Scotia. I believe they may have come to council to make a presentation, but I can't be 100% sure. Mark Peck may have come, is preserving corridors for transit along the 102, and that includes access to the airport, is absolutely what we're looking at. And when we talk about some of the developments that we do in the future, including, how that transit comes in and out of the airport. So that is something that's really important as we grow. We are a hub in Atlantic Canada. We're an alternate hub in all of Canada, and getting people to and from the city in a way that is energy efficient, that is environmentally friendly, is incredibly important. We have parking facilities there. Now they're full. And so getting people necessarily out of cars, and you're right, we have Uber, we have Turo, we have rental cars, we have all of that, but getting them out of cars is something that is important to us from an environmental perspective. So know that it is on our longer term plans. And in terms of additional work that we're doing with Metro Transit, as I mentioned, Dean Bouchard is happy to come and explain some of that if that's the wishes of the committee.
Yeah, we've had a very strong working relationship with Halifax Transit. We've been working over the summer, the subject of applications and tap payment on the bus has been a challenge for our passengers. We had some data from the tourism booth actually at the airport. We're getting approached by passengers looking for information on the buses, and we were surprised at the stats of how many passengers are eager to use it and finding that a challenge. And so we've had some good discussions with Dave Regie and his team, and we're working towards an interim solution until we have the full tap and pay solution on the buses.
Okay, great, that helped. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Next on the list, we have Vice Chair Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just wondering, looking ahead next year or 2 or 3, what do you perceive to be the biggest challenge that the airport is going to face and encounter?
That's a very good question. So with our recovery, I've always said the first 80% will be a little bit easier than the last 20 in terms of the passenger recovery. Without a doubt, the challenges that the airlines are having that I mentioned earlier with respect to aircraft availability and crews is impacting us here in Atlantic Canada and in Halifax more than some other regions. So when we talk about the recovery, and Paul gave you some numbers, and we say, we're at 85, and then next year we expect to be here. It's important actually to ensure that the city is aware and that the province is aware that that is about 10% behind the rest of the country. And that feels really odd when Halifax is set to be the fastest growing city in the country next year. And so you may say, why is that? Know that it has gotten the attention of the premiers in the region. The Council of Atlantic Premiers, and this is public information, has asked that the airports in the region take a look at that. I think one of our biggest challenges over the next few years is to get back that regional connectivity. Today we have no service to Sydney, Nova Scotia. We have no service to anywhere in New Brunswick. We have no service to anywhere in PEI, and our service to Newfoundland is about half of what it used to be. And so in order for us to build back our hub status, and that not only serves Halifax, but that feeds the rest of the country. It feeds our U.S. traffic. It feeds our international traffic. We need to figure out how we can get back connectivity within the region. That is going to be a big challenge for us. It's not that people don't want to fly. We were talking yesterday, actually at our JRTA meeting, about traffic on the roads. It'll help get traffic off of the highways. It's not that they don't want to fly. It's just to find the right carrier with the available aircraft, the right sized aircraft, and the crews to fly those routes. So certainly that will be a big challenge for us over the next 2 to 3 years. As for other big ones, Paul, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is going to be interesting over the next few years is, as I said earlier, at peak times, we're actually at higher capacity than we were pre-pandemic. And, typically you would be looking forward to bricks and mortar investment to try and increase that capacity and make sure passengers continue to have a good experience at the airport. But, given the additional debt that we had to take on during the pandemic period, the impacts of inflation, the issues with the supply chain, certainly with respect to large projects, I think it's going to be a challenge for us to, make some more strategic investment in technology and more sort of thinking outside of the box options to try and stay ahead of that demand, ensure that passengers still continue to flow smoothly, and avoid the necessity to make those very expensive bricks and mortar expenses as long as we can. That's really going to be something that a lot of the team will be focused on over the next few years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Next on the list, Councillor Outhitt.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Welcome. How's it going with the bun fight with HRM over property tax? How's that for a blunt question and consistent with my character, I guess? And the other thing is just for my curiosity, because I've always wrestled, I know you're not a Crown Corporation, I have run nonprofits before, I know you're similar to that. What would have happened if you hadn't raised the $150 million? Would the federal government have let the 8th largest airport go under? Would we have, what would have happened? I'm just curious, because you had to go out and get this debt financing, go into debt rather. But if you hadn't done that, were you right to do that? I guess is my first question. You probably were. But what were your options? What were your alternatives?
Thank you for the questions, very direct, and I appreciate that through the chair. So two things on your first question about our realty tax agreement. So for sure, on March 2nd, when the Budget Committee voted to reopen the agreement, we were caught off guard by that, without question. We were delighted that on March 21st, Council agreed to defer that decision for a year for two reasons. One, it gives us an additional year of recovery, which we very much need and appreciate. But as well, it gives us a chance to dialogue with HRM staff around the agreement and for each to better understand the benefits for the other of the agreement. It was quite clear that that wasn't kind of evident in those discussions. So know that those discussions have happened. We've had one meeting and actually a second meeting tomorrow on this matter. So know that those are happening because we have a year and we want to take good advantage of that. So that is the update on that. Your question about what would have happened, I mean, you can only imagine in the trenches of this as airports were going from, 100% passenger, which all your revenue is really linked to your passenger volume. Small amount, as Paul mentioned, to cargo, but the majority, without a doubt, over 90% is linked to your passengers. So when that goes from 100% to zero, we were in crisis mode, without a doubt. We're a system, and so as part of that system, it does not make very good sense for one airport to turn around and close or, fold when the others are able to make their way through. And it was quite clear at the time, as we looked at the airports as a system, we were all in exactly the same situation that Paul just described. The airports together took on Canadian airports, over $3 billion in debt to stay open through the pandemic. So our 150 may sound small relative to that, but for sure it's a big lift for us here in Halifax. So we had to do it together, and it's not that we went out and did our borrowings together, but the airports themselves had to, and we did, work collaboratively across the country to say, how are we going to get through this? We did a lot of work to gain as much support as we can, and Paul covered some of the federal support, as well as much work as we can to get provincial support and to get municipal support where we could, together as a region and then individually in your own communities. had we not, like we had no real choice, and thankfully we were unsure whether the debt capital markets would be supportive of entering into additional debt with the airports. We had to reopen the existing agreements we had with them to waive a bunch of covenants. We couldn't meet our debt covenants, same as many airports across the country, and then begin dialogue as to whether we could borrow. We didn't have very many levers to pull. Where we're non-share capital or not-for-profit, you have revenue, zero. You know, you have borrowings, okay, that's an option, or you have support from your level of government. First one, zero, a little bit of support, the balance came to debt. And so certainly the debt capital markets knew that eventually we would get out of this and saw the longer-term view and came step forward to provide the support, also knowing that obviously that debt is a long-term commitment. And I think there's a bit of hope in the system in itself that we all have ground leases. As we mentioned, Transport Canada is our landlord. That has a finite end date. Doesn't go on forever. And so I think there's still a bit of hope in the system that will perhaps get readdressed all at the right time. When we get out of the pandemic, we're still all recovering, that the entire system of how airports are run across the country will be looked at, including obviously the significant debt that this system had to take on through the pandemic. Yeah, but we're not at the end of this yet, for sure.
No, and all kidding aside, I wanted you to share this information with us on both of those topics, so thank you. I always learn a little something from you, so thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any more speakers on the list, so I just want to say thank you very much for the presentation. I think it is a great idea that we make this an annual event, and it's a good opportunity for us to learn about your business and what's happening at the airport and how we can work together. Councillor Smith, your numbers there on the transit, I mean that is surprising, and I think that is something that we have to work on together to figure out how we make that work. I see that, regionally it relies on regional services, which only operate at peak hours, which really makes taking the airport bus not an option for the majority of residents in our city, in our municipality, because you just, there's only 3 buses in the morning and 3 buses in the afternoon, and if your flight's outside of those hours, you're out of luck. It doesn't work. So, I think we need that transit piece we really need to rethink, because it does support our goals as a municipality of getting people out of single occupancy vehicles and onto transit, and that might be a better investment than building more parking lots if your parking lots are at capacity. So I think that's an area we can definitely do some more work on. The economic impact is it is staggering, like how much we depend economically on the airport, not just the city, but the province as a whole. So we spoke a little bit about the federal support that you received, which was not great. It was something. I was just wondering if Paul, if you could talk about the provincial support that you got for the airport in terms of COVID recovery. And when I look at we're back up to 4 million passengers with the goal of getting back to, I think you said 4.5 million is the target we're working toward. I was just wondering how that compares to airports of similar sizes across the country. I think you said 10% behind the rest of the country. So that might be the answer to that question, but if you could just confirm that, because when I look at the economic impact, a lot of that, the 3.5 billion, that is going in sales tax, whether it's in construction, whether it's in passenger spend, whether it's in the businesses that operate, whether it's the employees that, I think the 18,000 employees, the tax revenues from that are really going to the provincial and the federal government. HRM doesn't doesn't get a share of that. Though it's important for us to have jobs, it's important for us to have an airport, it's important for, the quality of life of our residents and the success of our businesses to have that facility, to have a international airport. But economically, in terms of dollars and cents into the municipal coffers to reinvest, we don't get a big portion of that directly. But sorry, I kind of went on there, but if you could answer a couple of those questions. And I'm also really happy to see your green strategy. That's great. Kind of a technical question. I'm just really curious about your electrical charging stations. Will they be for employees? Or who's the profile, the user profile on that? And I appreciate you might not have that information directly at hand, but perhaps we could follow up on that at a later date.
Thank you. I hope I captured all your questions, but I'll just make a couple of comments. I think in terms of the provincial support, we'll get Paul Brigley to speak to that in a moment through the pandemic and ongoing. As well, Paul can speak to our recovery level relative to our comparator airports. Good question. The impact on HRM, really important impact as it relates to tourism, and I think Ross also spoke to that, but Paul can highlight some of those numbers again. And then our green strategy, the electrical chargers we mentioned, and as well Metro Transit. I think Dean will have a couple of comments on that, so perhaps we'll start with Paul. Thank you for the question.
Sorry. With respect to provincial support, the provincial government has been actively supporting the airport through an air service development fund that they created, which actually predates the pandemic. And the satisfying thing for us was, during the pandemic period, the provincial government continued to support that initiative. And quite frankly, many airports in other jurisdictions are very envious of the support that we've gotten from the province, which is directly linked to our efforts to try and attract additional service and service to new markets. I mentioned in my comments earlier that it's an extremely competitive environment now. It's very much a situation where as limited capacity becomes available for the carriers, there is any number of airports who want that aircraft and want it on serving a particular market that's important to them. So the province has stepped up and helped us, and they have obviously target markets that they're interested in, but they've allowed us to use that fund to target what we see are our priorities and opportunities. So that's been an important partnership. So I don't want to certainly understate that they haven't been there. In terms of operational support, that's not really their role. But on the capital investment front, when we've had an opportunity to receive some federal funding for particular projects, the province has stepped up on those occasions as well and provided some additional funding to complement those revenues. So, sorry, the other question, I almost forgot what the other question was.
And perhaps I haven't captured it correctly, but it was around our recovery in Halifax, the 8th largest airport in the country, relative to our peer comparator airports, so Ottawa and Winnipeg, I would say, who that is. And then your third comments, Councillor, was around the economic impact with HRM. You specifically referenced the sales tax, but I think some of the other references as well that are important, that are directly to HRM, would be jobs, as you mentioned, but as well the tourism impact that Ross spoke about earlier. So just comments on both of those 2 points.
With respect to the recovery question, we expect in 2023 that we'll be back to around 85% of our pre-pandemic activity level. And certainly we'll get a long way back in 2024, where we're estimating that we'll get back to 4 million passengers. We'll essentially be there in terms of our recovery. But what we're seeing with other markets across the country is that certainly those comparator markets in Ottawa and Winnipeg are recovering faster, specifically this year, than what we are. I know that both of them, as Joyce said, are probably running about 10% of where we are. And in fact, we're seeing that some of the larger 10% higher, yes. And some of the larger airports, some of the larger hubs are already now operating beyond 100% of what we saw in 2019. And as Joyce said, the reasons that we're falling behind in some cases are related to that drop-off in intra-regional flying, which was a big part of our business. I mean, St. John's, as an example, was I think our third biggest market prior to the pandemic, and now we only have about 50% of the service that we used to have to that market. So if we can address that issue, it will certainly help us get back. And we've also seen our transborder market, so flights into the United States, that has been a difficult market to recover for us. We were relying pre-pandemic primarily on U.S. carriers to help service that market, and they've had some real challenges with respect to aircraft and crew availability. So we see that starting to recover, but again, it's been a little slower in this region than what we've seen in other areas. And the economic impact, I think that jobs is a critical thing. I mean, certainly a lot of the people that work on the airport campus live in HRM. A good portion live in Hants East as well. But in addition to that, just what those jobs represent in terms of spending capacity really has a big multiplier effect, and I think that's reflected in the numbers. So when we take a look at as we do every year, on what our contribution to the province is, and then we asked this year to get a little more specific information from the city, we were, I guess, pleasantly surprised, not terribly surprised, at the significant impact, just specifically within HRM.
And just to speak briefly on the electric vehicle program. So it's a pretty broad program we've just launched this year. So we're starting on two fronts. One is we're putting it in our public parking areas for visitors to the airport who are parking. We're also building it on the apron for the the airlines and their ground handlers to charge the equipment that are used for servicing the aircraft. Next year, we'll be furthering that into the employee parking areas, and also for charging our own fleet vehicles, because we're in a process of turning over our fleet from gasoline and diesel to electric. Longer term, we're also looking at what will it take if electric aircraft start flying into Halifax, because they take an enormous amount of electricity to charge, so we got to do some long-term planning around that. On the subject of Halifax Transit, just to return to that, and Councillor, you'd mentioned it only ran at 3 periods. It actually runs all day. It's hourly through the day and half hourly on the busier times, so it's more frequent than I think the information you have. And the ridership that you mentioned, Councillor Smith, is lower than our understanding of it, and certainly anecdotally, it's not unusual to see 10 or 15 people waiting at the bus stop to get on, and there's employees using it, including I have an employee in my department who uses it every day, so we are getting good use of it. I'm not sure what period that data is from, but I think it might be better than whatever that period was. It might have been during the pandemic, I'm not sure, but it certainly, I think if we looked into it, it'll be a little better now.
Yeah, so just to clarify, it wasn't the airport bus I was referencing. It was buses from other areas of the municipality that are bringing people to the downtown to then catch a bus to go to the airport. It doesn't necessarily make sense to take a regional service from Tantallon or Cole Harbour to the downtown to catch the airport bus, and those regional routes only operate in the morning and in the afternoon. So it's not the airport bus, it's the connections to get to the airport bus, and where you can actually catch that bus only services a small number of people in our municipality. So it's something I think that we should probably take a deeper look at, and how we make that more available to more people.
The same.
Yeah. All right. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to buzz back in just on the topic of the buses. I mean, I think you're right in that, you know, there's possibilities to do better by it. It doesn't necessarily maybe have to be a downtown connection. Maybe in the future it's a straight shot across the bridge terminal. Who knows? But I mean, let's not discount this service. Like the downtown, you know, Dartmouth area. I mean, these are the most densely populated parts of the municipality. It's not available to a lot of residents, and it's also the places that have the best connections in. If you're in Eastern Passage, hop on the 6, get to Bridge Terminal. There you are, off you go. So let's not throw a baby out with the bathwater and pretend it's terrible. It's a good service, but I agree with you, it could be better. The thing that I've observed, I had the chance to take it. I took the bus to go to the Atlantic Mayor's Conference in Goose Bay. Took the airport bus out for that. And I'm trying to remember, there was another time I was on it within the last year as well to catch a flight. It was packed both times, like standing room only, luggage all over the place. And each time I came back thinking, geez, I really should ask Dave here for some ridership numbers, because it might be something that justifies, you know, more than the, I think it's, is it once an hour or once every half hour? So it might be once an hour. And then like the frequency felt to me like something that we should improve just based on the experience of being on the bus and seeing that, well, clearly there's demand here. And, you know, we all know with frequency, you tend to improve your demand. Good service begets more service, not the other way around. So I think it's something that's well worth a look. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And no, I was suggesting how we expand the service, not throw any babies out with bathwater. I wonder where that expression came from. All right. I don't see any more speakers on the list. And with that, I will say thank you very much to the Airport Authority for coming and presenting to us today. And yeah, let's talk about, we'll talk about making this annual. And I hope you have a good rest of your day and rest of your week.
Thank you.
Okay, 10.3.3, short-term rental ban impacts on the Eastern Shore has been deferred. And we'll move on to the public participation portion of our meeting. Last Annie showed me, we had no speakers on the list. So I will ask, do I have to call 3 times for this? Is there anybody who would like to speak? Are there any speakers? Are there any speakers? I do not see any speakers. So we will move on to 12. We have information items brought forward, none. Reports, none. Members of standing committee, none. Motions, none. In camera, none. Added items, notices of motion. Do we have any, well, first of all, do we have any added items? I see none. Any notices of motion? I do not see anybody buzzing in for that. So our next meeting is November 16th, 2023. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. All right, so moved. And thank you very much.